Welcome, everyone, to the Future is Bright podcast. My name is Chris Batz with Columbus Street. I am exclusively focused on and facilitate corporate law firm mergers, acquisitions, and combinations in the United States. My co-host, Howard Rosenberg, will not be joining me today. From time to time, I do record and am recording solo episodes on topics of law firm strategy, growth, and M&A. So today, I'm going to share some thoughts on law firm strategy, what it is, what it's not, how to think about it, and why law firm executives should start with strategy first before pursuing or exploring law firm mergers. So I like to talk about the 3 Ps of law firm strategy. It's positioning, perception, and then competition. So strategy for corporate law firms start with honesty about where you are, where you stand, and where you're going. And so it's about focusing on what matters most to your clients, meeting their current needs, and anticipating how they evolve. And it's not about wishful thinking. A lot of what I'm going to say is stating the obvious, but in most realities, law firms lack strategy. And I'll explain again what it is and what it's not. So a true strategy requires understanding your competition and your place in the marketplace, not just internal optimism and not aspiration. In fact, strategy without addressing competition isn't effective. You must soberly assess where you are. So this clarity, when you obtain clarity, and we'll talk about how you attain clarity, drives choices and trade-offs. So strategy isn't defined by the website copy that you have, the words on your website, or what you wish to be, but by what clients actually perceive and value in you. Now, there's a lot of AmLaw firms. I would say they're the ones that are winning the game understand this. And there are law firm executives that understand this. But as a whole, of the AmLaw 200 and mid-sized firms lacks a very strong, compelling, and clear strategy. So let's talk about one of those P's, positioning in the market. Market positioning is your firm's place in clients' minds relative to your competitors. To determine it, you have to conduct rigorous, honest comparison of your firm to others vying for the same work. So who are your competitors? They're not just necessarily the firms in your backyard. They could easily be the larger firms out there. I have a lot of clients and managing partners I've spoken with who are in a place they no longer source the high value work. They're doing local counsel work. And they're like, what gives? Well, we're going to talk about strategy gap. So going back to positioning, you have to really clearly define and identify who's getting the work that you want and who's getting the work that you're also competing for today. And then you have to identify your ideal client. Obviously, there's lots of factors around that, but it's important to do the work in figuring that out. And then you have to benchmark yourself against these peers, these competitors. There's a number of factors that involve benchmarking, usually pricing, talent, reputation, profitability, innovation, client retention. And this process reveals strengths and weaknesses. So again, we're getting sober, we're getting honest here. And then you want to use quantitative and qualitative skills that might involve client surveys or interviews. It might involve some form of market intelligence, could be a tool or a platform. And it could also involve reviewing recent pitches or wins and understanding why you're losing them, if you can find out why, and maybe why you're winning some. So all of these things pull together and help you understand your position in the market and this gap of where you are and where you want to be. So you can create a matrix make it nice and pretty, and understand the decision making and where your position, where your competitors are on that diagram. But what's so critical, and you're hearing me say this over and over again, is to be brutally honest in this process. So strategy begins with truth. If you claim to compete with an Am Law 50 firm and yet you're losing talent to regionals, uh, there's a knowledge gap, and maybe an honesty gap for you. So clear-eyed honesty lets you decide what to really double down on and what to pursue, and ask the hard questions of, are we deluding ourselves? Or asking the question, what steps do we need to take? And we'll get into that. So what is market positioning not? And I've alluded to this already, but I'll just reiterate. It's not internal optimism. It's not a slogan. It's not aspiration. It's based on market reality. It's not what your website says, but it's actually what clients believe. So it's simply not what you want to be known for, but it's what the market says and perceives. Speaking of perception, let's talk about that, since that's one of my 3 Ps for strategy. Your market perception is determined. So I'll back up. Your market position is determined by your client perception of you. So I'm fascinated by perception. I think there's so many different things that affect perception, and yet perception is sometimes hard to figure out how it happens, and it feels like this magical force that occurs, and yet it can't be ignored. You have to give a lot of weight to how your clients perceive you and how you're perceived in the market. So, some things to consider, which is not going to be a surprise, but it's important. And this is where I find law firms sticking their head in the sand. Clients decide who they trust for big matters, often based on what they think a law firm can do, not just what it can do. Now, clients have this knowledge gap. We call it perception. And you may say, we're amazing at what we do. We're very good at what we do. We think it's way better than this bigger firm, but yet the client thinks differently. And it's up to you to bridge that gap. But perception is dictating your status. So a larger firm may have a perceived advantage, deeper bench, some more geography reach, some kind of brand that speaks to them more. And so clients have been told, and they believe, that one-stop shops are very important to them. And so that perception favors them. Whereas we have regional, local, statewide, different types of firms that are wrestling through with the reality of a strategy gap, and they're being given volume work. They're being given less valuable work. They're being given lower rate work, and they're losing their talent, which is a strategy gap. So we understand that perception creates the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And to close that gap, you have to align, obviously, this reality of what clients perceive and your offer. So how do you improve perception? Perception is not an overnight game, nor is changing market position. And honestly, we're talking about the same thing here, but things you can do. You have to implement strategy, and you got to get crazy clear on what you want to be known for. And you can't be known for everything. That's sloppy strategy. It's ineffective. So would you, in an example of being known for something, as the go-to M&A firm for Midwest founder-led businesses in deals under 250 million? Clear, crisp. So if you're not clear, then you're claiming broad excellence. And there's a lot of firms out there that are broad excellence that sound like vanilla. and it doesn't differentiate you. So bridging client perception with reality of who you are is differentiation. And how do you build perception of reality for you? There's a couple of things you can do. Um, you know, it's how you deliver your service. So being very big on a few things, which is again called strategy. It's choosing what to do and choosing what not to do, but you can't do everything. So it could be speed, responsiveness, it could be business fluency. And to be honest, many firms should be doing that anyway. You can't be fast and not know what you're doing. Um, Clear communication, proactivity, consistency. These are actually things that should all firms do anyway, but you can't do it in every area. Um, so another thing is, and obviously you want to create that wow, you want to create that relationship, um, but you can't have the best attorneys and offer the lowest rates. So there's some of that trade-off there. So making another way to establish perception, increasing your perception, is making the invincible visible. Many firms do great work, but it tends to be quiet. And there's been a lot of work in this about how to tell the world how great you are. But it's the case studies, it's the deal announcements, it's industry specific insights and legal updates. There's ways to communicate to build credibility to the right people and deliver value. Third-party validation. Now, we all know there's a big difference between chamber rankings and super lawyers. There's third parties involved that are verifying client feedback, and then you've got a popularity contest. So clients know this. Many of them are former big law lawyers anyway. They know how the game works. And so there's a lot of value on chamber rankings. Obviously, client testimonials matter. Obviously, NPS scores can matter. And then being visible, speaking engagements, being visible everywhere where it matters to the client, reinforcing and shaping that perception. Influencing perception is a multi-year all hands on deck approach, but it's got to be focused and it's going to have a real plan. You can audit. You can audit your website for accuracy and content and effectiveness. Your digital marketing strategy, you can audit. You can see how it's working in that regard. But it's so important to get feedback from your clients. If you're not having regular, strong relationship feedback moments that create that, again, 360 loop feedback, so valuable, so important to know where you could be bridging the gap. So remember this when it comes to perception equals what you consistently deliver plus what you're known for plus what others say about you. And so you can't make up perception. Perception is real. And so where you are today based on market positioning is the perception of who you are. So improving your perception isn't window dressing. It's about alignment, aligning your services with client needs, your messaging with the client outcomes, and your behaviors with your aspirations. Behaviors equaling strategy, deciding what to do, what not to do. So I want to go back to this concept of gap because it really drives effective decision making. When you apply an analysis and an understanding through brutal honesty of perception and market positioning, it gives you an understanding of where you are today. And maybe where you are today is where you want to be. But what's interesting about strategy is that it changes over time and your clients change. So if you've done the work of this and it's been 10, 15, 20 years ago and you're really happy about your results, but somehow things have changed. Somehow your clients have moved on, your best clients, the matters are not as good, they're not as profitable, you're not getting all the referrals, you turned into local counsel with volume work and lower rates. Again, we call that strategy gap, potentially because, and many times it's, you didn't stay fanatical with your clients. and there was some form of contentment, or many other factors that affect why a firm can get in this position, but competition has stepped in and delivered the services the client needed, maybe in the future that they anticipated the client would need. And so strategy isn't addressing client needs today, it's positioning for what clients need in the future. And what clients need in the future can involve a number of things. So, uh, talking about what clients need in the future, they might need different services. They might need a deeper bench. They might need geographical capabilities in areas you're not in. They might need something that might be a shift to how billing works. Definitely, there's a lot of alternative fee arrangements, and some clients might need that. And there's been a lot of effective application of that with large law firms out there. They might need, you know, a need to pivot with new practices, better attorneys, maybe more attorneys. There's a number of different things as long as it fits the client's needs currently and in the future as things change. So strategy has to be, and the law firm applying it has to be adaptable. You have to pivot, and you have to be nimble. So what I'll say around all this is it requires regular planning. So a strategy tends to last, let's call it 3 to 5 years, maybe 10 years, but the world's changing so quickly right now that I would say you should really have a strong strategy for every 5 years, and be prepared to pivot on a year-to-year basis and adjust, especially with AI, especially with where private equity is going, and the heat is going to turn up on law firm competition as it relates to talent, technology, and then clients having their needs met in new ways. So let me share with you, it's going to be the opposites, but forgive me. Let me just share this because people are going to resonate with this. What are the common pitfalls of strategy planning, or lack of, for law firms? Obviously bringing up this gap that I've described. So it's for firms that neglect agility, speediness, adaptability, and flexibility for their clients' needs. Firms that lack fanatical client relationship building and for receiving very honest feedback from your clients, regular, honest feedback. This causes for law firms client attrition, declining quality work, reduced profitability, and talent departures, and frankly, law firm failures. These are all symptoms of strategy gap. So, or just lack of strategy altogether. So firms that grow by merger, this is another common pitfall. Firms that grow by merger without a clear strategic plan often end up trying to do everything. Instead of a strong market position, they become generic. They become vanilla. And there's a lot of AM law firms out there like this today. So let's talk a little bit about addressing the gap. Now, I've given various concepts and ideas that you can do from a marketing, a branding aspect, relationship with the client, decision making. But how firms tend to solve that problem, aside from marketing and branding and internal communications, solving client needs many times is through talent acquisition. And as in the most previous episode I released that I shared on this subject, that were pain points for mid-sized firms, you can either build up the machine, the large pipeline of acquiring talent to fit your existing client needs, and hopefully that bridges the gap. And the struggle is you can do lateral hiring, ones, twos, and small groups. And as I shared before, that is time consuming and it's expensive and requires a lot of effort and energy. Um, and the irony is, if you're trying to bridge a gap, how long is it going to really take you to fire on all engines and have a very effective lateral hiring process? It can take a long time. It can. And so there is opportunity cost with doing, frankly, the way it's always been done the past 20, 25 years. If you have a real strategy gap, should you do bolt-on acquisitions? Should you do some type of merger, like 80 to 120% of the size of your firm, whether by revenue or headcount? Or should you do something transformational that may leapfrog this process and bridge the gap? It's an important thing to ask. So obviously, as I mentioned before, you got to have a strategy. That strategy is driven by clarity on your market perception, so market positioning and client perception. And then based on that, you have to see where you are, where you need to go, and you ask a question, how long is it going to take? What is this going to cost? And what is the most effective way to get there? And it depends on what you need to bridge, what you actually need to do. If it's just literally adding depth to litigators, there's lots of those out there. Depends on the quality, depends on a lot of other variables related to that. That might be easier through a bolt-on, or maybe easier through lateral hiring, maybe. But if you're adding on, say you're a boutique and you need to make a transformational change because you have a lot of challenges with your size, or your clients are huge and they really want more robust services, you might need to join a larger platform. You could maybe entertain a merger of equals. It really depends. And you have to honestly look at what would that look like? And what would that provide us? And does that check all the boxes that would give us what we need to maintain our market position, or give us the ability to continue anticipating new areas that our clients are going and knowing where they're going? So I want to, I'm focused on growth, and not everything can be solved with another attorney, but we are law firms today. Law firms are human capital organizations. And yes, there is AI, but it's, we're talking about high value dynamics. Now, if we're looking at how do we keep our costs low, and how do we offer ourselves through volume, or, we're dealing with commodity pricing, I think technology is going to have a lot of application there as well. But AI is going to have interesting implications over time. I think it's going to be more used to empower those attorneys. But I'm personally skeptical of it literally replacing high value lawyers out there. So I hope this is helpful. If you have questions, if you would like to talk further about strategic planning, market positioning, perception, if you would like to talk about exploring what growth could look like with what I described, please find me on LinkedIn, Chris Batz. You can find me also with columbus-street.com. And I'd love to invite you, listeners and subscribers, if you haven't already, to leave a review for me on iTunes. Please share this episode with others who you feel that would benefit from this. And then thank you, everyone who joined me to the end. I look forward to continuing to provide value.